Welcome to Off Air with Christy Capel. I am joined by a special guest and totally honored to have Tom Hamilton. He is the radio play-by-play voice of the Cleveland Guardians. He's the recipient of the 2025 Ford C. Frick Award for the National Baseball Hall of Fame, which, by the way, is baseball's highest honor. All around an amazing guy, and you make it or have made it when you have a bobblehead. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Christy.
It is so great to have you.
Well, it's great to be with you. Honored to be with you. And thanks for asking.
So the bobblehead, do you have some? I don't even see some in the background. You should have all your awards behind you.
No. I have a wife that has stored those bobbleheads plainly out of sight. So,
I know my husband throws mine in the closet too. Hey, let's talk about the award because I am so excited for you. All of Cleveland, Northeast Ohio, even people around the country say well-deserved, and it is very true. You've been a finalist for 3 different times, finally getting the recognition that you deserve for your life's work. And I love watching all your interviews of you winning this award, and you made me tear up, and you're crying, I'm crying on the other side of the screen. So talk about what that means to you.
Yeah, you know what, Christy, and I mean, you're in the business. None of us get into the business for that. We get in the business because it's something we have a passion about, and you're just fortunate if you get to keep chasing your dream and certain things come true. That was certainly not an objective, a goal, or anything of that nature. So we've been greatly humbled by it, and we're also very appreciative of it. We know how fortunate we've been, and it is a we thing because we had 4 children in less than 8 years. And so my wife gave up her career in radio and television to stay at home since I was on the road, half of the summer doing Major League Baseball. And, nothing happens without her support and her raising the family. Nobody fell out of a tree during a homestand. It was always when you were on a road trip, and she's at the ER with 4 little ones. And so, she's every bit as much a part of this. And again, we're just, it's still surreal and whatnot. And like I say, we're very grateful, but we also know how blessed we've been. You tell your own kids, find something you have a passion about and chase it. And, I'm one of the lucky ones that gets up and can't wait to go to work. And, I came from a family of dairy farmers. My mom and dad grew up on dairy farms. I spent my first 12 years on a dairy farm in Wisconsin, and it's an incredible way to make a living. And without those people, none of us are eating the way we are or have some of the things that we have. But that wasn't the life that I wanted, but it sure gave you an appreciation for their work ethic. And they were the ones that also would say, you don't need to be a farmer or whatever the case might be, find something. And we've been lucky enough to be able to make it a career.
About growing up, you played sports, your kids have played sports. This has been your passion your entire life.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I was as good a player as our boys were. And, but then again, as a parent, you always want your kids to be better than you and everything.
Yes.
And so all 4 of our children have given us incredible memories and incredible moments. But yeah, I was your typical small town mediocre athlete. And, everybody wants to be a pro player in something, or at least that was how it was for my generation growing up, and quickly realized in high school that better have a backup plan because was not going to be able to make a living doing this. So, and I was lucky enough at an early age that this was something that I wanted to pursue, and, was able to do it, and, worked your way up the ladder. I'm more appreciative of the hard times because I think that makes you appreciate when you do get that call to join the Cleveland Indians in 1990. And, you knew what it took to get there. And you also, I think, know what it takes to hopefully keep the job, not take it for granted, because we're all replaceable. And anybody that thinks they're not,
Mm.
will soon learn that reality the hard way.
Agreed. Agreed. And yeah, I have plenty of stories on that. But I think for some of us growing up in Northeast Ohio, really like learned from you, like maybe didn't understand the sport of baseball, or I'm driving in my car and I feel like I'm in the stadium because of Tom Hamilton. My husband used to say
Thank
that
you.
all the time because we're not from Cleveland.
Right.
And so he liked baseball, but my husband, I'm telling you, Tom, he did not get into baseball until he started listening to
Oh, wow.
you
Thank
when
you.
we moved to Cleveland. And that is a very high compliment coming from my husband, who's very critical when it comes to obviously with sports, him being in sports, what have you. But talk about the aspirations. I mean, people watching this all over the country and probably have aspirations to be a Tom Hamilton. Talk about how you got your start. I think everybody remembers where they are when they got their
Oh, yeah.
first call for their first job, right?
Yep. Yeah. And I went to a small college in Minneapolis, being from outside Madison, Wisconsin, and thought that first call, was the start of, stardom, and we all come out of college with stars in our eyes
Yes.
and no
Oh, yeah.
reality of what the journey is going to possess. But I got a quick dose of it, Christy, when the job that I accepted in Shell Lake, Wisconsin, which is far northwest part of the state, kind of in a tourism area more so than anything. And part of the job included renting the apartment in the cellar of the radio station owner's mother's house. And
Stop.
when I say cellar, it wasn't a basement. It was a cellar. And
Oh my
anybody
God.
that grew up in that age certainly knows the difference. And I spent 6 months there going, my mom always said, "You're good in math. Why, you ought to think about being an accountant. Those are really good jobs. There's a lot of security." And
Stable. Hmm.
yeah, I was like, you know what? Should have listened to mom. Should have tried again. But, and I think the biggest thing I tell kids, and we tell our own kids, Christy, is that, if you're going to quit as soon as things get hard, well, you're not going to make it anyway. And so I think I was fortunate in that, I knew there were people with more talent, and there still are, but the one thing you could control was your attitude and your work ethic.
Hmm.
And that can take you a long way in life, whatever your walk of life is. And so I was able to get out of Shell Lake, thankfully, or I might have gone back to school and become the accountant. But, there's a lot of rejection along the way.
Oh yeah.
And, you're close to this job or that job, and somebody else gets it. And again, I just think you have to stay undaunted by that. A lot of times it's easier said than done. But, in the end, I think we all realize anybody that, and I hate to use the word success because it sounds so self-serving or pretentious, but I don't care if you're an attorney, if you're a school teacher, if you're a mailman or a mail woman. Nobody gets there without working hard at it and overcoming obstacles. And so
Mhm.
that's just life. We tell our own kids, if it were easy, everybody could do it. And if
Right.
you want the easy way in life, well, then you're always going to talk about woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yes, that's such great advice for those who are listening, and maybe you're in the middle of your career and you're in your 40s or 50s, and things aren't going well, and you're
Yeah.
still trying to get to that next step. It's difficult. These kids, all they want to be is YouTube stars, and
Uh,
all that. Oh,
Influencers.
oh my God, what are we doing? Oh my God. And I just got done. I had an interview with a magician, and he's like, "Well, I didn't get to this part to get to YouTube by not doing anything. So
Yeah.
I had to work hard to get any job. You have to
Yeah.
work hard, right?"
Right.
Um, I want to take us back into when you got that call for the Cleveland Indians at the time, now the Guardians.
Yeah.
Can you remember still what that moment was
Oh,
like?
yeah. I mean, you you don't think you've got a chance. It's just they had a couple of hundred applicants, and you did get into the finals. And I was brought to Cleveland. At the time, we were in Columbus, and we just had the birth of our first child, Nicholas, in November of 1989. And so, it was kind of a whirlwind for us, being a part of the Ohio State football broadcasts, and then having your first child and the holidays. And yeah, we got that call in January. And for me, you can use any cliche you want, Christy. Winning the lottery, the impossible dream becoming a reality, whatever. That phone call changed our lives. And, to this day, there will never be a more impactful or a greater phone call in our professional lives than that call that day. Because that opened the door to everything else. That not opened the door to us being able to move to Cleveland and be able to do Major League Baseball, but to raise 4 children in Northeast Ohio, which we couldn't think of a better place to raise them. And it also opened the door to me being able to do Big Ten basketball on television for 25 years. All of that is a byproduct of that one phone call.
Yeah. And so many great things have happened in your career since then. It's so fun to look back and watch people post comments on some of their favorite things about you. I want to ask you, what is your greatest play or game that you called? Do you have a favorite after all these years?
That's the hard one. I mean, Christy, for me, nothing will top the very first game in the major leagues, because in a lot of ways, when you're working your way up the ladder, doing high school games, minor league games, small college, whatever the case might be, it just seems like that's unattainable to ever get a chance to do Major League Baseball. So nothing, again, will top the first game. It was in Cleveland. Of course, it got snowed out in the 3rd or 4th inning.
No way, shocker.
Yeah. But, that was the culmination of all that work to get there, and then getting lucky enough. You can do all the work you want and feel like you're ready or whatnot. You still have to get fortunate. You still, good Lord has to shine on you, and you get that phone call when somebody else is just as deserving. So that one, and then you just had, a period there where I think I was fortunate. Well, one, to work with Herb Score, who is an icon in Cleveland. For him to accept me bought me credibility with an audience that I hadn't earned. But if Herb accepted you, then Cleveland accepted you. And I'm forever grateful for that acceptance by Herb. And you were going through some bad years. We lost 106 games in 91, the worst season ever. Went through the boating tragedy. I lost a good friend in Steve Olin in that boating tragedy, one of the best people you could have ever met in life. So I think because you also went through some hard times with Cleveland people, then when the good times came, they kind of felt like, yeah, he knows what it's like. He's maybe not been here as long as we were and went through some of the same years and years and years of bad ball, but enough so that then the 90s just became a magical era. I mean, the ballpark, it helped, I think, turn around the national image of Cleveland, turned around the national image of downtown Cleveland, because you were being featured on so many national telecasts, and it was such a crown jewel. You had such an entertaining team. I mean, the first World Series, in 41 years with the Atlanta Braves, it's hard to top that. Winning the pennant in Seattle with Kenny Lofton scoring from second base on a pass ball that kind of sealed that win. And it just, there've been so many that are, you'd have a hard time listing them all. That's why I know how fortunate we've been. 14 years we've been in the playoffs, the last 30 years. And that leads to magical moments in October. We just had a great October. Didn't go to the World Series, but anybody that was in Detroit when, David Fry came off the bench and got a pinch hit home run to save the season, anybody that was at the ballpark in the 9th inning against New York to see John Kenzie Noel tie the game in the playoffs, and then to have David Fry walk it off. Jeez. You don't ever forget those moments. And I think, Christy, even though the way it ended, still for me, the most magical moment in the history of our ballpark is Rajay Davis against Aroldis Chapman
Hmm.
in Game 7 of the 2016 World Series. That, I'll take that memory and the scene and how people reacted. I'll take that to my grave.
Gosh, the stadium is so loud during those
Yes.
games. Oh
Yep.
my gosh, nothing like being in the ballpark in those moments.
I agree.
Um, I told you I was reading some of the comments, and one was so funny. It says a lot of viewers say, other than your home run calls that they love, their favorite line that you've ever said was "Down goes Anderson."
Oh,
And for those of you who maybe are not from Cleveland or listening across the country, that's when Jose Ramirez had punched Tim Anderson on second base, and so that was a recent
yeah.
that was a recent thing that, my gosh, in those moments, it's like, what do you say? We'll leave it up to the professional, Tom Hamilton. We must have played that over and over on Fox
Yeah.
8 News,
Well,
as you've
thank
seen.
you. And again, I mean, you I've told Bradley, who obviously works with you folks at Channel 8, and one thing you got to remember in this business, I got a lot of praise and a lot of credit for a call that could have gone totally the other way. In
Mhm.
that moment, you're not prepared for what happened, and you're lucky enough that the right words came. If people feel that way, you could have also said something you would have regretted for the rest of your life
Mm.
and ended your career. And I don't think when you work live like we do for three
Yes.
hours every night, you're walking a high wire with no net,
Yeah.
and you better always keep that in mind. And I haven't always said the right thing at the right time. You make mistakes all the time. That's part of being live. There's nobody to edit it for you and whatnot. What's said is said. And if people like that, I'm very grateful for that. But it's also, you better not dwell on it or think you're high and mighty, because
Yeah.
again, you were 10 seconds away from saying the wrong thing and forever, leaving people with an impression that would carry you for the rest of your life that you didn't want.
Yes, but when you're a good guy like Tom, I
Well,
get it. I get it. We all can make mistakes, but you do such a great job with it.
thanks.
Well, and for generations, Cleveland fans, that's you're the only voice they know on the radio. They've grown up with you. Um, you said once that there is no guarantee. You were talking about this earlier, coming into a new city and or a new market, and people actually liking you, and
Right.
I can relate to that, and I'm sure a lot of us can. I don't know if it matters if it's media or if it's a different career, but getting the fans to like you and appreciate you is hard, especially coming into Cleveland. It's
Yeah.
like we can talk about our own people, but you talk
Yeah.
about them and we're gonna fight. And so, and my dad's from Cleveland, so I had a little bit of a background, and we didn't come to visit much because his parents had passed away when I was so young, and we never really came back. But I sure do appreciate the fans being so
Yeah.
accepting to me. I know you have felt like that not being
Yeah.
from Cleveland. And so, and you've had great partners with your career. And so
Yes.
how did you make that work?
You know what, Christy? Again, it goes back to Herb accepting me, and I think
Yes.
being from the Midwest really helped, because being from Wisconsin, not that different. Having worked in Milwaukee, maybe a smaller version of Cleveland. My wife had always made a great point when we moved here, and she went to Ohio University and actually, was a co-anchor down there with one of your former fellow workers, Martin Savage. And
Oh,
so
yes.
being a Pittsburgh girl and then going to OU, and then she worked in Columbus for years, she had a feeling for the state more so than I did, having moved from Milwaukee in 1986. But Wendy said when we got to Cleveland, one of the reasons you could tell that this was such a tight knit community, she goes, when I meet people for the first time here, they don't ask me where I went to college. They ask me where I went to high school.
Yes.
And that was revealing in itself, in that most of the people living here are from here. And so because of that, there's a fierce loyalty to the city of Cleveland. And if you become one of theirs, if they accept you as one of your own, it's kind of like the old adage with your brothers and sisters. I might say something about my brother, but you better not.
Right.
And then I think that's what gives Cleveland such a unique feel and such a family feel that we just relish to this day. And so again, if Herb hadn't accepted me, Christy, then it's a whole different story
Yeah.
because he and Nancy were revered in this town. When we would go out to dinner with them during the off season, everybody's head would turn when you walked into the dining room. They weren't looking at Wendy and I. They were looking at Herb and Nancy. They had a regal presence. Some people have that it factor, and Herb and Nancy had it. And again, because people so loved him and Nancy that we just, you have to get fortunate in this business and you work with people like that open doors for you that you
Yes.
never had any idea you would need open, but learned how important that was the longer you lived here.
Yeah, it being in the right place at the right time. I have
Yeah.
felt that way with David Moss and Wayne Dawson, just
Yes.
with the crew that's been in Cleveland for so long. I mean, if they love you, everybody loves them,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Right. So if you can get into that club, it works out for you, as you know. But you've been blessed in your career. Talk about your journey. And now where you're at now. You have kids, right? And so Brad, we love Brad. For those of you who haven't caught on yet, Brad is one of our reporters at Fox 8. He is amazing. And by the way, he had filled in, gosh, I think it was before Christmas time. I had come in on a Sunday night, and usually the night before the newscast is playing at 3 a.m. when I'm in the green room. I looked up in the TV and Brad's anchoring and he's doing the sports anchoring. I'm like, what is happening? So I don't know. Somebody was sick or whatever, and Brad had to fill in. But my gosh, I made sure I found him the next day, and he came walking through that back door, and I said, you did a fabulous job. Fabulous job. Don't let anybody else say anything. You just hold your head high and know that you did so well. And he catches on fast. And so he gets from his dad and his mother.
You know what, Christy? That's the fun thing for me.
Yes.
That to hear him call his mom and then they talk about news stories because, that was her career before we moved to Cleveland and she covered the Capitol. When you're in Columbus, that was her beat, the state capitol. And she can give him advice on politics, how to cover a news story, things to, the most important thing is, listen. Mm-hmm. And it's neat for me because, you can see what her experience and her knowledge has meant to him and for him to tap into that. And so, it's really been fun for us. And we're grateful to have him and Brittany and the 2 grandsons in Cleveland. I guess our other 3 don't like us as much because they're all over the country. But as
you sound like my family.
If your kids are happy, then you're happy wherever.
Yes, it's so true. And you talk about the grandkids. You have some here. What's it like being grandpa?
It's such a, there's no bad stage in your life. I mean, if we were young enough, we'd do it all over again, having 4 kids, we miss it every day. But, everyone's got an opinion on being a grandparent compared to a parent. I've never quite understood that. There's no comparison. They're both unbelievable
wonderful
experiences. Mm-hmm. The one good thing about being a grandparent, you don't have to discipline them like you did your own children. That's mom and dad's job. Grandpa and grandma, they're just there to spoil them.
That's right.
But it's just, I think the fun part too, Christy, is that you watch your children become adults and how what maybe you taught them, they might be passing on, or maybe they have some different ways of going about it. There's no one right way, no one wrong way. So it's just, again, we know how fortunate we are. And we have been blessed with 4 incredible children and now 3 3 of the 4 are married, and you couldn't pick better partners.
Oh, that is amazing. Well, I will move on, but I will tell you, I was leaving Fox 8 before this recording, and he goes, "Hey," it was one of our photographers, and I don't ever see him. And he said, "Hey, what's next on your podcast? Who's coming up next?" Like, I'm like, it's awesome when peers are asking you, you know, like people are paying attention. And I said, "Actually, I'm going to talk to Tom Hamilton when I get home." And he goes, "No way." And he said, "You have to tell him, why is Brad so nice?" Like,
Well,
I don't know what it is about our career, but not everybody is the nicest. And then you find those select few who still truly understands that just because you're on TV doesn't make you any better than the person next to you.
no.
And he said that about Brad, and I wanted you to know that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's, if one thing you can teach your kids is that, as we all know, the people behind the scenes don't get anywhere near the credit than the few of us that might be on camera or might be on a microphone. And, at the end of the day, none of us is saving a life. We're not doctors. We're not nurses. We're not first responders. We're not teachers. All the people that are so much more important and have so much influence on our children that, we're kind of in the toy department of life is how I look at it.
That's so true. So Tom is in Arizona. So he's actually spring training right now. So I can't take up any more of his time, but he's somewhere where it's warm, unlike some of us, or maybe if you're listening in California, I don't know, whatever. It's warm where you are. But we want to know how spring training is going. You got any inside scoop on anything?
You know what, Christy, it's still so early. Was down there the other day, and camp still is, officially, about a week and a half away. But it's amazing, Christy, how many guys get here early, especially after the holidays. And we have a lot of guys. One of the advantages of them moving spring training out here, you have a lot of players now that have an off-season home in this area. And so they're coming to the facility every day to work out. And so guys don't come to camp anymore to get in shape. They're already in shape. They're ready to go. And, there's a great enthusiasm already in camp, the few guys that I have seen, just based on what happened last year. Now, as we know, you don't pick up where you left off. You've got to work awfully hard to get back to the point that they were in October. But I just think what they went through, and we'll see. Again, the season, as Herb used to say, that's why you don't make predictions. This is why you play the games. But I think what they went through last year with the injuries that they suffered, going toe-to-toe with the Yankees like they did, this ball club knows they're close. And every year has its new challenges. But the thing I try to tell fans is that we legitimately are in Arizona at spring training knowing there's a realistic chance of playing in October. And that's what you want. You don't want to go to spring training going, boy, hopefully we don't lose 100 games, because it's going to be a summer of irrelevance. It's going to be relevant again in Cleveland. Whatever happens, we know that starting at the end of March, for the next 6 months, there will be relevant baseball in Cleveland. And, that's something I never take for granted, because the bad years, you remember them, and you better not forget how quickly it can go the other way.
Yeah. And Tom, thoughts on Stephen Vogt? I mean, geez, nothing like a high start to being the manager, right?
Yeah, he did a great job. And, ironically now, Christy, Tito is a half a mile away at the Reds complex.
I know.
And I know what Tito had great respect for Stephen Vogt, but the thing I maybe appreciated more about Voter than anything else last year was how he did not feel entitled. He continued to say, look, in my mind, I inherited a mansion, a beautiful mansion, and I changed the paint color in a couple of rooms. Now, I think that's underselling what Voter did, but what I appreciated is he was paying homage to Tito. It wasn't like he walked into a bad situation. He walked into a great situation, and he made it better. And, there's an awful lot of Tito in Stephen Vogt. And for us to have managers like this back to back, again, we see how sports are, and the worst thing you can have is just a constant change of the front office and coaches, because that means you're never winning.
Right. So true. And your comments to the fans who come out to the ballpark every night, who absolutely love you. I'm speaking for all of them.
You.
What do you have to say to them?
Thank you. I mean, man, without them for 35 years, all of us have our paycheck signed by somebody, whether it's Paul Dolan or, in your case, somebody from Channel 8. But we also know, in essence, our real boss are the viewers in your case, or the listeners in my case. If they don't like us, we're done. We're fired. Our bosses will find somebody that the audience likes. So we can't say thank you enough. I mean, I'm from Wisconsin. My wife's from Pittsburgh. Cleveland accepted us, and Cleveland has made it our home. It'll always be our home now, and it'll always be where we want our kids coming for the holidays. Home is Cleveland, and we don't take that for granted. We are so grateful for Northeast Ohio, for the kind of community it is, as you now are learning with young kids. We couldn't have picked a better place to raise our 4 children. And, again, we have a community that cares. Now, they may not like you at times. They may love you at times, but they're never apathetic. Apathy is the worst thing. We don't have that in Cleveland. And so, Chrissy, I just, getting a major league job, you won the lotto. Getting Cleveland, we didn't realize we won the super lottery, if you want to put it that way. We could not be more grateful for, and I wished I wasn't saying 35 years, because that means you're closer to the end.
Oh, no.
We are in the beginning.
No. Tom, my 8-year-old son's going to play in the major leagues. We've already predicted it, and we're going to need you there to call it.
Sounds like a deal. I'd love for that.
I have loved having you on the show. I feel like I could talk to you for hours and hours, and we appreciate you. I know sometimes maybe you don't hear from the fans or whomever enough. I know maybe sometimes we all feel like this, but you are so well loved in Northeast Ohio, and you can just tell you're just such a great guy all around. I met your wife one time in the salon. That was enough for me to know that you guys are an awesome couple. I'm pretty sure we were getting a pedicure together.
Yeah, I think so. She set the record for those. So.
You sound like my husband. You're going to get your pedicure again?
Yeah, I was like, man, your nails grow fast.
Oh my God, that's so funny. All right, well, Tom is in Arizona. He's got to head out to spring training. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck this year, and go Guardians.
Christy, thank you. I'm such a fan of your work, and can't wait to watch what your children become. It's a journey that you just got to relish. So thank you. It's been an honor.
I look forward to it. Thank you, Tom.
Bye, Christy.
Bye.